Hi, I'm Patrick Giguere with Cosmic Alchemist Astrology, and thank you for tuning in to this, my latest video. Thank you to everybody who watches this channel, likes, subscribes, comments, and shares. And if you're not yet a subscriber, I ask you to consider doing so. So, the point of this video, I want to talk about the October 25th, 2022 solar eclipse. So this solar eclipse in the sidereal visible sky zodiac, it's 7 degrees of Libra. In the Western Tropical Zodiac, 1 degree of Scorpio. So different meanings. I like to take both of these systems into account. And the meanings really blend for any celestial event that takes place. So this eclipse is all about, when you look at it from the Libra point of view, it's all about a change in our values systems, because Libra, the ancient symbol, was a merchant scales. Most people will tell you Libra is about the scales of justice. If you look into the more ancient astrology, it was actually the merchant scales. So it's all about getting the scales to balance, so having equal value in each of the scale pans. So it's like you put the gold or silver coins on one side, you put the product in the other. And both parties agree that what they're trading is an even exchange. So it's a two-way street, not a one-way street. And so because of this, Libra deals with give and take. And relationships are all about give and take. So your friendships, all your social relationships, your family relationships, and your business relationships, which the symbol of that merchant scale really directly deals with. Libra also deals with politics. It deals with the give and take nature of politics. It's like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You give me something, I'll give you something. So, yeah, Libra deals with all those things. Scorpio is the original 8th house, so it deals with deep transformation. It deals with all of the, for lack of a better word, the taboos in our life. The things that we don't talk about in polite company. Secrets, scandals, it deals with sexuality. It deals with the things that we really deeply want and that we have trouble letting go of. Which is interesting because Scorpio is a fixed sign. So fixed signs, like the status quo, they like to hang on to things. And they like to hold on to things. Whereas Libra is a cardinal sign. They initiate change, they catalyze, and they kickstart change. So, but ironically with Scorpio, even though it's a fixed sign, it ultimately deals with deep healing and deep transformation. And healing and transformation are often about us having to give things up that we deeply want. But having those things doesn't serve our evolution, our mental evolution, and our soul's evolution. So, even though we have these two different zodiacs, when you work the astrology out, there are often common factors in them. So it's pretty interesting. Okay. So yeah, this eclipse is all about basically removing our old value system. So our value system in terms of the value we place on ourselves. And it has a lot to do with self-love. And, we always get what we deserve in life. So what you're getting depends on your level of self-love and then your authenticity. Are you going for things that are genuine to your growth, to your spiritual evolution, to your mental evolution, and to just, your dharma, your life path. And, the self-esteem wrapped up in it too, because if we have low self-esteem, we deal with unreasonable things. So this is all about, this eclipse is just removing our old view of our values, our value in ourself, and what we value in the external world. And then that's from the Libra perspective. When you look at it from the Scorpio perspective, it's about basically releasing attachments that we deeply want, we have all these hang-ups about, but they don't serve us and they're not helping us. So, yeah, there's interesting overlap there. So, and I say it's about letting go and getting rid of things because it's a K2 eclipse. So K2 is the node of the moon that's involved in this. So if you're not familiar with mechanics of eclipses, let me give you the general rundown. So eclipses, solar eclipses, which in this case we're talking about, solar eclipses always take place on the day of the new moon. So what is a new moon? A new moon is a conjunction between the sun and moon. So they meet up, same sign, same degree. And those are the nights when you get a dark moon. You can't see the moon because the earth is putting its shadow onto the moon. So it's basically between the sun and the moon. So they're in same sign, same degree. And the moon is in shadow. So when you get the day of a new moon, but then one of the nodes of the moon, which are, so the north and south node of the moon, aka Rahu and Ketu, aka dragon's head, dragon's tail. When you get those involved, so those nodes of the moon are basically shadow planets. They are, I think they're 5D planets. They're not 3D planets, but people see them in altered states of consciousness. So for all intents and purposes, they're shadow planets, and they are the shadows that are cast onto the sun and moon during eclipses. So on the day of a new moon, conjunction of sun and moon, same sign, same degree, you also have an interaction, a conjunction, whether tightly or loosely, with one of these nodes of the moon, either Rahu or Ketu, the shadow planets. So that's what an eclipse is made out of. So a conjunction is all about bringing the power of two or more planets together. So, these planets they're the bodies of the gods and the goddesses. They're intelligent beings. So when they meet up, their powers combine. So solar eclipse, it's all about the merging of the powers of the sun and the moon. So they're basically turning points where big changes happen depending on the themes of where they occur. So sun sign, lunar mansion, and the planets that may or may not be involved with them. So, yeah, eclipses are turning points. They're a chance to basically pause and take a new look at things. And so what happens here is the moon is dark, so the mind is darkened, and then the sun, the soul, has the shadow of the moon, one of these shadow planets, Rahu or Ketu, one of these nodes, go in front of it. So basically the light of the sun and the moon gets darkened, and we're left in this momentary darkness where we can sort of take inventory of what's going on in our mind and our souls, because the moon is a macrocosm of the mind, and it's also our collective mind, and the sun is a macrocosm of the soul, and the collective soul we all share. So that's where the band got the name. I don't know. I'm dating myself, 1990s there. So that's what an eclipse is all about. So you get the darkening of the soul and the mind, and then you can kind of take inventory and see what's in there. So, and this is the thing I've talked about before, where light illuminates, but it also blinds us. So it basically takes away the blinding light that can actually hide things from us. So that's an interesting thing. So on eclipse days, people can feel just lost, despondent. They can feel hysterical. And this is from being cut off from that light of the soul and the mind, just for those minutes where that it takes place during. And the other thing too is when we're cut off from that light, we basically have to sort of deal with ourselves for a few minutes, and that can be freaky as hell. They say that the greatest fear in the world, or at least here in America, is public speaking. I think it's our own emotions. So That happens on eclipses. Eclipses are basically hitting the reset button. So one of those nodes of the moon, Rahu or Ketu, the dragon's head or dragon's tail, will actually consume either the sun or the moon or both, depending if it's a solar or lunar eclipse. So they come and they basically swallow the sun and the moon, and they wipe the slate clean. So in this case, we're dealing with a Ketu eclipse. So Ketu, dragon's tail, south node of the moon. Ketu is all about the past. In your birth chart, it deals with your past life karma. It deals with the part of your life that you mastered in past lives, which is a wealth of knowledge and information and wisdom for you, but you don't need to explore it or develop it anymore. But it's something you can always fall back on. And this is something I go over whenever I give an astrology reading, because it's absolutely crucial to understanding yourself and your life and where you've come from in past lives. Whereas Rahu, the north node, the dragon's head, deals with where you are going in this life, what you're supposed to be exploring and developing, what area of your life. And when I say suppose, that supposed to is determined by your soul desires. So it's not by some Jehovah in heaven. It's your own soul. So yes, K2 is basically hitting the reset button and wiping the slate clean in our minds and our souls so we can move on. And it's wiping away again old attachments, Scorpio, and then 2, values that don't serve our evolution. So Libra, one of the things Libra deals with is politics, like I said. So politics and religion, organized religion in the world today, they operate from a place of fear and trauma and codependence. So sometime in humanity's past, we experienced some great trauma. And this trauma was exploited. And I think this is where organized religion comes from. I'm going to make a video soon about the year of light to kind of illustrate this. But I think in the past there was some great event. It was a comet, or it was some sort of visitation from humans from another world, or I'm not sure what exactly, maybe a combination. Maybe there were many traumas, but we were traumatized, and this trauma was exploited, and we were convinced, our ancestors were convinced that we had to be codependent towards political and religious institutions. So we're having, and every time this comes around to Libra and Scorpio, I think we get this reset button hit when these eclipses come to these signs. Because Scorpio also deals with just the deep down traumas and emotions and unconscious feelings within us. Scorpio is like, it's kind of like a door to our personal and collective underworlds. So we're having the reset button hit on our values. So any relationships, any dynamics in relationships with partners, spouses, family members, friends, business partners, but then even the institutions and the figures of authority in the world, any dynamics in our relationships with just others, because Libra deals with the others in your life and in the world, whereas Aries deals with yourself. And they're opposite signs. So yourself and the other, those are opposite things. So our sort of dysfunctional codependent dynamics with all the others in our life, we are being prompted and pushed to re-examine those and to let those go so that we can have better, healthier, more functional relationships with all of the others in the world. And I think because it is sidereally, it is Libra, this is slowly precipitating a change in the way people in the entire world deal with political institutions. And this is needed because, again, multi-generationally, we've been taught to be very codependent towards figures of authority. And especially in the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, we've been taught to wait for messiahs to come and, fix everything for us. And that's toxic. So we need to give that up. So yes, this is a pretty interesting eclipse. Not the biggest, craziest one, but it's going to be felt. It's visible in Europe. It's only a partial eclipse because sun takes place sidereally. Sun takes place at 7 Libra. Eclipse takes place at 7 degrees Libra. So sun and moon, 7 degrees Libra. K2 is at 19 degrees Libra. So that's 12 degrees away, not a tight conjunction. But interestingly, Venus will be conjunct here. So Venus is at 8 Libra. So sidereally, the sun and moon are at 1 Scorpio. Venus is at 2 Scorpio. So Venus is going to be eclipsed along with the sun and the moon within 1 degree. So I think what this is going to do is this is going to send the stock market down. Well, it's not going to send it down, but because we have this whole thing in the universe where, as above, so below. And then as below, so above. So it's all, you can't say one thing causes another, but what is written in the heavens indicates what's going on in our minds and our souls, and we can understand what's about to happen. So this will coincide, this will indicate, I think, a downturn in the stock market, because Venus is material resources, wealth, just enjoying all the sensual things in life. And then Libra is trade and business. So, and the stock market is really this theoretical thing. It doesn't produce anything. It doesn't, enrich the world or enrich anyone's life. It's all theoretical. It's basically a casino for people with MBA degrees. So, yeah, there's a lot of disingenuousness that has to be wiped away. So what else do we have here? Oh yeah, so it's visible in Europe. So the entirety of Europe, North Africa, quite a bit of the Middle East, and through Russia all the way to the Ural Mountains where Siberia starts. And all eyes are on Europe right now, waiting to see what's going to happen with that war. Russia is just getting stronger and more self-sufficient. And the whole nuclear war thing, it's a bunch of hype. Really, World War III is a war in our own hearts, our own communities. World War III is going to be, it's already started. It started with the cooties hysteria and the needlecraft and, the rooster boosts. So, and just the control freakism. So that kicked off World War III. It's already happening. So, yeah, we're fighting it already. So all of this warfare, it's not cracked up to what a lot of people say it's going to be. So, yes. So Venus eclipse, visible in Europe. So another interesting thing here is, in my opinion, I think this is going to affect some world leaders. So I think shortly after this eclipse, I think President Joe Biden is going to make a trip to the hospital. The astrology has been speaking to this for almost a year. And he's been hanging in there. I don't wish illness upon him, but he's had poor health since the 80s. He's been having brain aneurysms ever since then. The cocaine has definitely not been helping. But he's been sick for a while, and cognitive decline is very real. So this solar eclipse takes place in his 12th house. 12th house deals with isolated places. Hospitals are isolated places. And then the lunar takes place in his 6th house of sickness, health, and disease. So kind of getting hammered by this one. And then, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, Kamala Harris. She may ascend to the presidency. She's never going to get comfortable. The media, the left biased media, is already tearing her up, and her own party is going to eat her alive. I don't think the Republicans are going to have to do much to her. She is having this solar eclipse take place in her fifth house. So fifth house is the performance art of politics, because fifth house deals with creativity, writing, theater, acting, all that stuff. Politics is one giant performance art show. So, and it takes place conjunct with her Mercury, which is your ability to think and communicate. So, she's going to have a lot of trouble explaining herself, getting her point across. And it's also conjunct within 2 degrees her natal sun. So K2 is swallowing the transiting sun, the transiting moon, her Mercury, and her natal sun. That's not a good eclipse for her. She's not going to be able to do the business of politicking very well. It's going to be a disastrous start for her if she ascends to the presidency. I think she's going to be like Daenerys Targaryen, like queen for like 10 minutes. She's not going to get taken out, but she's going to be removed by her handlers or corporate sponsors, because she was just there because she's kind of a prostitute and she was willing to play the race card to make Biden's ticket more palatable. And then that lunar eclipse will take place in her 11th house of social networks. And her, it's the house that deals with being able to get a message out to the world. So, not good for her. Who else? Those are pretty much the main ones. So, yeah, that's the main point of this eclipse here. I'm at what? Just over 20 minutes. So, those are the main points here. Look for the market to go down. I think it's going to stay down until about April, May. It's going to bounce back. It's not going to go back to normal, but it's going to bounce back. And then, yeah, the change in leadership. I think that's very real. And before I end this summary, for a little sneak preview, the lunar eclipse. So we have 2 eclipse seasons every year, 6 months apart, because they take place in opposite signs. And you always have a solar eclipse followed by a lunar, or vice versa. And they're 2 weeks apart always. So the lunar eclipse will be November 8th, 2022. This is election day. So it's going to be a shit show of a day. I have to be careful what I say, because Google, who owns YouTube, their AI is scanning for anything that doesn't coincide with the mainstream narrative. So a lot of people will be talking about Lection EA Rodfey, or Lection EA Igingray. A lot of people are going to be talking about that. That's going to be a flaming batshit wacko shit show of a day, because the maximum for that lunar eclipse here on the east coast of the U.S., where our capital is, it's at 6 a.m. right when the sun's coming up. So it's like that whole day is doomed before it even starts. So, yeah, a lot of talk of Lection EA Rodfey, especially dealing with the Democratic Day Artie Pay. But, both of those Artie Pays suck, including the Republican Ray Artie Pay. But, because the Democratic Day Artie Pay, because they act like they're just so nice and cuddly and cute, I think they're on another level of corruption. Even though, they both suck, I don't side with either one of them. But when people have to go out of their way to tell you how good they are, it's usually because they're hiding something. And, they kind of suck at life. So, yeah, that's what I'm seeing. Get into more of that later. Okay, so I've about summed it up. If you want to sign off because you have things to do, I'll see you later. For the rest of you, let's keep on trucking. Okay, so yeah, I'm getting a little better about this. All right, so back to the solar eclipse. Let's look at some lunar mansions. This is pretty cool. When you look at, let me see here. Okay, so yeah, I do the lunar mansions pretty much for the sidereal. Because, you know, the tropical astrology is like the seasonal energy. So when you look at the tropical, where this solar eclipse takes place, it's 1 degree of Scorpio. So Scorpio it's a fall sign. It's a fall sun sign. Now, tropical astrology, it's set to the midpoints of the seasons. So the spring equinox, the middle of the spring, when the sun passes over the equator, from our perspective on the northern hemisphere and comes back north, 0 Aries, did I say Aquarius earlier? 0 Aries is always the spring equinox. So no matter where the actual sun signs, those constellations, no matter where they migrate to on the horizon, spring equinox is always 0 Aries. And then summer solstice, high point of the sun, midsummer's day is always 0 Cancer. So cardinal cross is always the midpoint of the seasons. Fall equinox is always 0 Libra, midpoint of fall. And then midwinter's day is always 0 Capricorn. Midwinter from our point of view in the northern hemisphere. Always 0 Capricorn in tropical astrology. And this keeps the astrology synced up with the seasons. Whereas sidereal, it's all about what sun signs and in what lunar mansions the planets are visibly transiting through. So, and over the ages, those drift. So I think they're both good systems. I'm learning more about the Western as I go. It's a hell of a lot to get your head around. So yeah, tropically, solar eclipse, 1 degree Scorpio. So this is about the contracting and the shedding away of the fall. You know, less sunlight. You know, Scorpio, Judas Iscariot in the Bible is Scorpio, gives Jesus, the sun god, the kiss of death, and he goes to the underworld. Now, the thing about the underworld, Libra through Pisces, here in the northern hemisphere, that half of the zodiac is the underworld because there's less sunlight. You know, it's winter. Whereas Aries through Virgo, that is the summer half of the year here in the northern hemisphere. So you look at the sun signs with the seasonal energies. So Scorpio is very fall. And actually, when you look at the actual, where the seasons actually change, first week of November is actually the first day of winter. So that's right in Scorpio. So yeah, it's a fall constellation, but it's kind of winter too. It just depends how you look at the seasons. So Scorpio has that, you know, death, door to the underworld, contraction, the shedding away, the falling of the leaves. So there's that. So then Libra, again, it's all about balance, value, all that stuff. So lunar mansion in the sidereal system that this eclipse takes place in is Favonius. So Favonius is called the silver-tongued. So it's somebody who can talk their way into a good deal, talk their way out of any situation, out of conflict, out of trouble. So this is something we want to look out for. So we want to look out for especially people in the self-appointed world leader, billionaire class. So Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Jeff Bezos to a smaller extent. Definitely Klaus the Slugman Schwab, and George Soros. But I mean, that guy's getting pretty crusty. I don't think he's slowing down. But yeah, definitely World Economic Forum types, and then Elon Musk, who's basically a televangelist preacher for atheists, just making so many big promises you can't trust them. So watch out for the silver tongue. So what these people do, and my audience is well familiar with this. These people who are these self-appointed world leader billionaire types, philanthropists. It's like Hitler could have gotten away with everything if he had just called himself a philanthropist. Because people get so naive and, again, codependent about philanthropists. They're like, oh, that man is just so nice. He donates $1 billion to Harvard, and he just does such nice things with his money. It's like, well, he donates the money because he's going to make 10 times more. It's like kind of a no-brainer. So watch out for these fools. No, they're not. I mean, they're clever, but they're fools too. So this Favonius, yeah, it's silver-tongued, and this can be good because you need conflict mediators. But these self-appointed world leader billionaire types, the people who sponsor them and who run them, these people who, the fraction of 1% that literally own 90% of the world, who we have no idea who they are. On their behalf, these self-appointed world leader billionaires, they create problems over the course of many years, which they've designed solutions to those problems as they create them. So they design the solutions as they create the problems. And once they tell the media outlets that they sponsor to tell the people that it's a problem, and the people have a reaction, the solution already exists, and they're like, oh, well, this thing that I thought of, this will fix the problem. I'm just so clever. I thought about this so many years ago. Here's a solution. It's like Bill Gates with the cooties hysteria and the needlecraft. So yeah, watch out for these fuckers. Favonius, it can smooth things over and be the diplomat. It saves the day, but it can also be jealous, angry, violent. It can be self-centered, especially when there's money involved. So these billionaire self-appointed world leader philanthropists, they're always making money. It's like this whole battery car revolution. The oil companies are investing in it because they're going to make a shitload of money. So all of this progress in the world that they're pushing, including the needlecraft, they're making shitloads of money. So it's like, don't fall for the whole altruism act. So yeah, that's taking place in Favonius. There's Venus, which is being eclipsed along with the sun, also in Favonius, the silver-tongued. Let's see, what else? We have... Yeah, my notes are a mess. This is an interesting one. Neptune and Chimera. So Neptune is in retrograde. It went from its home sign Pisces back to Aquarius. So Aquarius can deal with this science and technology and all that kind of stuff. It's also the mob. It's we the people, but we the people often act like kind of an ill-informed mob very often. So Neptune being retrograde here, Neptune is very high spirituality, but it's also just being deluded and being deceived. So yeah, at this time, and then Chimera. Chimera is like, from the mythology, it was this hybrid creature that Theseus had to fight. So it's a combination of different animals in one. So they make these fucking things in labs, and they make these things, on a more of a microscopic level, and they inject them into people. So, beware the chimeras. Now, an interesting thing about the Lunar Mansion of Chimera, which is in Aquarius, which is where Neptune is, It's all about making a difference in the world, people who want to make a difference. Well, you can't always take people at face value who tell you they want to make a difference in the world, especially when they are from the, you guessed it, self-appointed world leader billionaire class. So watch out for these people. What now? Jupiter is in Forces. So Forces was it's a lunar mansion. It's ruled by Saturn. Forces was a titan who was basically a god who ruled the depths of the ocean. Actually, the father of Medusa. So he sired all of these kind of, sea monsters, for lack of a better term. So it deals with, the depths of the ocean. Pisces, it's the depths of the ocean. Now, water always symbolizes emotion. So it's our really deep, unconscious emotions. So Jupiter is at home in Pisces, in Forces. And it's retrograde. So it's all about going back and examining our unconscious emotions and even our spiritual values. And, I think about Pisces in general is it can be very diluted. You can go into those emotional depths and have epiphanies, but it can also be very diluted. It's all about where your maturity level is and what you're willing to handle and what you're willing to look at. What now? Oh, yeah. Rahu and Uranus, they're within 4 degrees of within Aries. Uranus, retrograde, 23 degrees of Aries. Rahu, 19 Aries. 4 degrees away, so they're conjunct. They're both in Hades. So Hades, the god of the underworld, who basically facilitates our soul's evolution by having us go into our underworld, our deep unconscious emotions, and sorting things out and healing emotional wounds. So this is all about, this constellation Hades is just about the things we need to deal with. So Aries, it's your head, it's what goes on in your head, it's yourself. It's also leadership. So when we're looking at the global leadership here, we've got this retrograde Uranus. So Uranus deals with rebellion. It deals with being eccentric. It deals with self-expression. And it deals with rebellion. But in my opinion, Uranus it's like the door to individuation. So individuation is where you become a self. So you start becoming yourself. So individuation is supposed to start in childhood. So as a baby, you're very dependent upon your mother. She is best equipped emotionally and physically to take care of you. And if she's given you everything you need, you individuate, you start walking, exploring the world, you develop a relationship with your dad, and then you keep individuating until you are your own self-contained, self-sufficient adult. So Uranus is like a gateway to that, but it's not the whole journey. So Uranus can deal with rebellion and self-expression, but it can be very superficial. So it's just get things started. The real transformation, the real soul transformation is Pluto. So you want to basically upgrade. You start with Uranus and you progress to Pluto, where you really change yourself deeply and you really heal yourself deeply and elevate and expand yourself. People often get stuck in Uranus. So a good example of this, it's like the hippies in the 60s. They're the hippie crits, really. A lot of them became yuppies. I think a lot of what they did, it's what the Emperor in Star Wars would call an insignificant rebellion. Because, they were doing things different than their parents. But, they really didn't accomplish a whole lot. They didn't end Vietnam. It's like the people who were making money off of Vietnam, They made as much money as they could and they moved on. It wasn't the hippies that did that, you know. And the thing is with Uranus is, you know, it's superficial. So it's like you dress different, you eat different, you know, you do drugs. You know, you don't you don't wash your armpits, you know, and it's like, well, great, but like, what are you accomplishing in the world? And that's something that, you know, they deluded themselves that they were accomplishing something huge in the world, in my opinion. So, in this rebellion too, it can be destructive. You know, Uranus return is 84 years, so half of that's 42, and that's like the midlife crisis point. So, stereotypical midlife crisis. Some guy, you know, he was 42, maybe a little older. He's married, he has kids, he has some great career, he's running his own business. And he has a freak out because he's like, holy shit, half my life got by and I'm strapped down with all of these responsibilities. And he's like, I need to get a 19-year-old girlfriend and drive a fast sports car convertible. And, you know, and what will happen is, you know, the guy will do this, but then he doesn't find happiness. And like the 19-year-old girlfriend moves on or he gets sick of her. And then he might even miss his family, but then he's already damaged the relationship with the family. So now he's got to spend another 20, 30 years trying to win his children back, you know, and the wife that he left that he might end up missing. It's like, she's probably never coming back. So, you know, Uranus, it's like the dabbling you do when you want to change your life. And change who you are. But a lot of people get stuck in the dabbling. And going back to the hippies, they've been stuck in the dabbling for like over 50 years, you know, 55 years or whatever. And it's like, you know, so many people, you know, especially these old hippies, it's like so many of them have been like doing drugs regularly for over 50 years. And you know, they were freaking out when Donald Trump was president. And it's like, well, do you really think the country just started going to shit in 2016? It's like, come on. It's like, what kind of awesome country did you think you were going to get doing drugs for 50 years? You know, it's like, you can't think clearly. And it's like, supposedly, you're choosing the leader of the free world and, you know, you have all this power as a voter. It's like, you know, you're fucking deluded. You know, part of that too is that generation and then the younger ones never had anyone tell them they were full of shit. And being told you're full of shit when you are full of shit it's indispensable, it's invaluable to the evolution and the growth of your character. So yeah, that kind of thing's problematic. So anyway, Uranus and Rahu conjunct in Hades. So to me, it's like the world leaders, well, you know, especially the self-appointed, the unelected ones, they want to change the world. They want to shake it up. So Uranus deals with this rebellion and deals with earthquakes, you know, turning things over. Yeah, they want to turn things over, but they're slackers. They're slacktivists. They're slacktivists, you know, like Black Lives Matter, Antifa, you know, a lot of feminist groups, like they're slacktivists. They want to get famous and generate social media content, but they don't want to like put the long-term work in. So Uranus is not the long-term work of change. It's just basically creating a disturbance and, you know, smoking a shitload of weed and dropping acid and not showering. And, you know, and this is whole thing about like, yeah, I'm sticking it to the man. And it's like, well, you know, if you do drugs for every day for 50 years, you're not sticking it to the man. You're like dumbing yourself down. So it's like that dabbler superficial level of rebellion and change. So it's like, and Rahu expands whatever it's near. So it's just like it's expanding this dabbler kind of slacktivist, like lazy energy that wants to shake things up and change things. So I don't find it very threatening. I don't find hippies very threatening. So yeah, it's like they want to do it, but they can't, and it's in Hades, and so it's like they're getting a sense right now that they are slackers and they are kind of incompetent, just with everything that's blowing up in their faces. Their whole agenda 20 or 2021 was a disaster, and agenda 2030 is behind schedule, and then on top of that, you've got it square to Saturn. So Saturn is at 24 Capricorn. So give or take is looking at both of these. So Saturn's basically going, nope, not happening. So that's pretty cool. What else? On the day of this eclipse, Mars is at 1 Gemini. It's really slow, getting ready to slow down and stop and station on the 30th, so it can retrograde back into Taurus. That's a big ass deal. Mars is in a constellation that straddles Taurus and Gemini called Prometheus. Prometheus, if you're not familiar with that mythology, Prometheus was a titan, or like a demigod. He stole fire from heaven from the gods so that humanity could use it. So, in like middle school, high school mythology, or even university mythology, which isn't too, universities aren't what they used to be. Like that superficial level of mythology. They're like, yeah, well, humans, they couldn't make fire and they couldn't cook with it, and they had to wait for lightning strikes, and they're very primitive. So Prometheus stole some from heaven and gave it to him. And it's like, no. This fire from heaven was illumination. It was information that changes your perception forever. Because Prometheus he's a Greek version of Lucifer or Loki. So both the names Lucifer and Loki come from Luca. So it's an Indo-European, aka Aryan word that basically stands for like a lightning strike or a flash of lightning. So it's a flash of intellectual and or spiritual brilliance. It's like an epiphany. So yeah, Prometheus is all about forbidden knowledge, forbidden hidden knowledge. So when Mars retrogrades, we're going to get some forbidden hidden knowledge. Sidereally, it starts in Gemini, goes back to Taurus. So through the media, we're going to learn things about, the wealth in the world. We're going to learn things about the business world, scandalous, underhanded shit they've been doing. Tropical, the whole Mars retrograde takes place in Gemini. So, it's going to be like hysterical media shitstorms and anger in the media, but I think there are going to be scandals about what the media has been up to, and they're probably going to have to change their tune and, roll out some news that's a little more real. So that's always good. So my next point, I talked about Biden and Harris. He's probably, I don't wish illness upon him, but he's probably going to the hospital. He's been in rough shape. Having him be president, it's elder abuse. It's like you got an 80-year-old with dementia out of a nursing home, and you're making them talk in front of a teleprompter, and they're confused and and irritable and lost, and you're injecting them with drugs, designer drugs, to keep them alert and as sharp as possible. Harris, things aren't going to go well for her when and if, and I think she will when she ascends to the presidency. I'm seeing that, probably by sometime in November. So yeah, we'll see. Biden had a lunar eclipse one day, I think, after his birthday last year. So the way that works is eclipses, if you have them around your birthday, usually you lose a parent within a year. If you're older and your parents are gone and the weakest link is your health, then within a year, it's a good chance you're going to pass, or at least you're going to get very sick. So you know, just what the astrology says. I don't wish it upon them. Oh yeah, I wanted to get into some cycles here. So I want to look at the last solar eclipses in similar places. And there are kind of two that fall into this. So, and it's interesting because let me see here. So yeah, it was in 2014. You had solar eclipse, 6 degrees of Libra. So yeah, that's what, 1 degree from where it is now. So it's pretty damn close. So you had solar eclipse, 6 degrees of Libra. Mercury was also at 6 Libra, so it was eclipsed along with, you know, the sun and the moon. So yeah, it was October 23rd, 2014. Was a very similar eclipse in Libra. So it was 6 degrees of Libra, sun and the moon, 6 degrees of Libra. Then you had Venus at 6 Libra. So again, eclipsed along with it. And that was a Rahu eclipse. So rather than K2, it was Rahu. So rather than the north node, rather than the south node, like this eclipse, it was a north node. And it was pretty distant. It was a partial like this one, you know. So that node of the moon, Rahu, that was causing that eclipse was at 25 Virgo. So, you know, it was like 11, yeah, what is that? 11 degrees away. So actually, about the same. Yeah, 11, 12 degrees. So when you look at 2014, it's like, well, what happened there? So 2014, you had the Ebola. They were trying to wind up the whole Ebola emergency. You know, somebody was probably trying to get that going. Like I said, I heard of this whole Great Reset thing back in 2005. The guy was saying, you know, CIA officer. You know, when I was a young spanking new naval intelligence officer, and this senior guy, was like, well, he's kind of mid-career, you know, getting to be senior. He was saying, yeah, you know, the world economy is going to have to be reset, and you know, they'll use a health emergency. And he was even talking about the needlecraft, and he was like, yeah, if it's a series of 3, if it's the initial needlecraft and then 2 roosters. He was like, you know, Ooster Bays. He was like, don't go near that. So yeah, there's a good chance they were trying to get it rolling with Ebola back then, but you know, it didn't work out. So yeah, 2014, the Ebola scare, Malaysian Airlines Flight 17. This is when basically Ukrainian bombers that were fighter jets that were bombing the Russian military, and then the pro-Russian Ukrainian rebels. They were hiding. They were violating the Geneva Conventions, violating the laws of war, and they were basically hiding behind civilian airliners. And on the Russian side, they launched surface-to-air missiles. Now, the engine, well, so a big commercial airliner, it was a 747. It's got 4 giant engines that are bigger than the engines on fighter jets. Missiles look for heat. So the airliner is a bigger blip. So because these jets were hiding behind a civilian airliner, the missile struck the airliner. So also that year, Crimea was annexed by Russia. Israel and Hamas were fighting, doing their thing. I think the Israelis were probably bombing Lebanon. And then the rise of ISIS. So, the self-appointed billionaire world leaders, they started ISIS to try to take over Syria. So, and then, since then, ISIS has, basically had its ass kicked. 2014, the Republicans won the midterms. Now, I would expect this again because, again, both of these parties suck, but, the Democratic Day Artie Pay has really been sucking. And they'll probably lose, but with the magic of computer technology, it may look different. So people will be talking about Election A Godfrey. And then what else? Yeah, Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. The police violence. The Philae robot landed on the comet Algeukia. So what the hell is it? I think it's Elon Musk's company and NASA. They're basically, what is it? They're like supposedly they're ramming probes into meteors to try to, they're saying they're developing this whole meteor defense system. There's something else going on. I have no idea what. I don't put much time into finding out. Also, 2014 was the Sony hack. So basically, Sony, I think they're what? They make electronics. I think they have like a record label. I think. They have like a cloud server. That thing was hacked, and there was a big scandal where I think the executives were talking all kinds of shit and saying all kinds of disparaging things about celebrities, especially the women celebrities. And it was a big to-do. So there's probably another hack coming soon that's going to reveal some misdeeds. And then Cuba was opened up. So back during the Barry Soetoro, aka Barack Obama administration, Cuba was open to Americans. You could just go there as a tourist. And then it's since been closed, the old farts in Congress, the Cold War heroes. They've put the embargo and the travel ban back on Cuba because Cuba doesn't want, McDonald's and Bank of America to take their country over. So, yeah, I'll expect some very parallel things in this year. And we're seeing this, the whole Ukraine thing going on, the cooties hysteria, and, the stuff in space that I was talking about, the midterms, Cuba. And then, what was the other thing? Oh, yeah. And, a little sneak preview. November 8th, the lunar eclipse. Midterm day. Going to be a batshit wacko shit show of a day because, again, the maximum of the lunar eclipse, 6 a.m. here on the East Coast of the USA. So it's going to be pretty nutty. Aries is all about like embracing your identity, knowing your identity, moving forward, initiating. It's all about just going balls to the wall and just doing things and not thinking about it. It's like you go with your gut and shoot from the hip. So since it's a lunar eclipse in Aries, Moon, Rahu, and Uranus are all going to be in Hades. So Moon and Rahu can make people like obsessive and just very touchy, very sensitive emotionally, feeling their emotions very vividly and overwhelmingly, and you get Uranus in the mix, and they it's going to be batshit wacko, super emotional with this just people wanting to rebel. So you could see riots as the corporate sponsors who own the politicians and the political parties and the media outlets, as things don't go their way in the elections EAs, they're going to use media outlets to wind people up. And you'll get the slacktivists back out there, BLM, Antifa, destroying, private property, slowing business down, Good chance of that. And then, opposite the lunar eclipse in Libra, you have Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Lunar Mansion, a constellation called Dinus. Dinus is a name for the Greek war god Ares, so it's fearsome. It has a take no prisoners attitude. It's persistent. It plays the long game. It's all about it's aggressive. It can be dictatorial. It's like people born under this constellation, they're born debaters. So a lot of contention around this political contest and election EA election EA Rodfay. So yeah, get ready. How are we doing? 1 hour. All right. I think that's pretty much it. Have a nice one, and talk to you later.